is the world's biggest sporting event set to touch down in India. That's right, is the world's biggest sporting event set to touch down in India? Well, the Indian government certainly hopes so. The Indian Olympic Association has officially submitted a letter of interest to the International Olympic Committee, wanting to host the 2036 Games. The official bid was sent to the global Olympic body on October 1 this year. Not just the Olympics, India is also hoping to play host to the Paralympics Games the same year. This is line with what Prime Minister Modi's vision has been to boost the sporting infrastructure in the country by hosting the top events. However, not everyone is on board with this proposal. Congress MP Karthi Chidambaram has spoken against hosting the Games, calling it a vanity project which is not viable for India. Well, this, of course, has been a huge talking point, particularly with the last Olympics, about how India performed in it. There have been divergent views, whether it be from the sporting fraternity or the political fraternity for that matter, about India, it being about time for India to be hosting an Olympics. But I'm being joined by my colleague Karishma at this point. Good evening, Karishma. So a huge move in all sense, India bidding for the 2036 Olympics, but not everybody seems on board.
Well, yes, absolutely. Political game has already started on it. But having said that, the talks for hosting 2036 Olympics and Paralympics game was on for a year or so, and now it has been formalized with the letter of intent being sent to the future host commission of the International Olympic Committee. And remember, this doesn't guarantee anything at this moment because there are going to be various other countries who are going to be interested in bidding for the 2036 Olympics. Indonesia is an example, Qatar is an example. So it is not going to be an easy road. But yes, India wants to host the 2036 Olympic and Paralympic Games and is very, very confident of its chances of getting the right to host these games. And as far as, the bidding process is concerned, it is, of course, very, very complex. There are various stages to it. The first stage is, of course, continuous dialogue. Then there is targeted dialogue where you have confirmed bids from countries who want to host the Olympic Games. Then it will depend on, which city in which country is going to host it, what the infrastructure is going to look like, the amount of money that is going to be spent, whether the country has its capability and potential to fulfill that amount of money, because we've seen with the Asian Games, which was actually accorded to Victoria, Melbourne, but then they said they pulled out of hosting it, saying that we do not have the finances to comply with it, and then was given to Glasgow. So obviously there is a lot of back and forth involved as far as hosting 2036 Olympic Games is involved, and India has taken the first step. Now it will be very interesting to see over a year or so what the conversations with the future host commission of the International Olympic Committee is as far as India is concerned.
Right. Karishma, thank you very much for joining us with those details. We are also waiting, of course, official reactions from sports persons as well. Thank you, Karishma. Well, the big Olympic news really that has come in at this point, and India bidding, officially marking the bid. The talks for this have really been going on for that matter. Do we have Karishma with us at this point again? Let me see if we can get Karishma back online with us. But as we said, there have been talks about this. There have been several sports persons also who have pushed for this, who have welcomed this move. We don't know about the latest reactions that have come in, particularly after the bid. But there's also those who are not agreeing with this particular move. And we're talking about Karthi Chidambaram, Congress MP, who's made it quite official. And it's not for the first time that he has spoken about this. He's gone on to say this is nothing short of a vanity project, and in fact, what the country must focus on is sports persons, their training, and the medals that India could win. All right, I'm being joined at this point by Adil Sumariwala, who's a president for the Athletics Federation of India. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. How do you look at this news that's come in at this point, and that is about India now officially, the talks were on for a long time, but officially formally launching the bid for the 2036 Olympics? How do you look at it?
No, I think it's a great moment for India. It's fantastic that India is bidding for the game. It is time that India showed the world what it can do. And it is absolutely the appropriate time. We have time from now 12 years to prepare, which is a good enough time. When you say prepare, you just not mean infrastructure. Infrastructure, the easiest to prepare. The soft skills, the coaches, the athletes, especially the athletes, to ensure that we have a very, very clear strategic plan to which we can go and execute and to ensure that India gets a host of medals at the next Olympic Games. So I think it's the right time for India. We are right, 40% of our population is below the 60%, sorry, of our population is below the age of 40. What better time than this for India to host the Games?
Mr. Adil, one question that everybody asks, and those who may not be well on board with a proposition like this in India itself, um, would argue that for countries that have hosted the Olympics, particularly for the cities that have hosted these Olympics, it's not been an easy game. Some of them have really been financially distraught, particularly after the games, as it were. If you have countries and cities in particular like that, um, is India in a position to handle something like that?
Absolutely, and I don't know where they are coming from because if it's planned correctly, do you know that London, UK spent $12.8 billion on their games? In the next 2 years, they recover that money through new tourists, just new tourists, not the old tourists. They recovered that money. So if it is planned correctly, if you have a legacy plan in place, which I'm sure we will, I do not see any reason. LA made money, Atlanta made money. So why do we always go by all the negatives? In this country, we've never learned to look at the positives, and that is why we always lag behind because our thought process itself is negative. We need a positive thought process, and if you think good, good will happen. That is what I was taught by my sports teacher. Just think good and good will happen, and we need to think good and good will happen.
Okay. Before I get into the politics of it, I also want to ask you one more question, and that is, um, let's look at the medal tally that India is getting. We may argue that what would you say to those who are the political detractors like Karti Chidambaram, and they're going to say having infrastructure like multi-stadias is not going to be something that's going to be utilized long term in a country. However, what the focus needs to be is on training athletes and getting more medals in. How would you look at an
I am
argument such as
I
that?
am not going to get into the politics of it at all. Absolutely not getting into the politics. Who said what, when? We did an outstanding Commonwealth Games, one of the best Commonwealth Games in the history of the Commonwealth Games. We did an Asian game, which was par excellence. And therefore, I'm not going to get into the politics of it. We are capable of doing our best. The second thing is the infrastructure with 1.5 billion people, whatever infrastructure you make and whatever infrastructure you create is not going to be sufficient. And therefore, this whole thought process is wrong.
Hmm.
The whole thought process is wrong that it is how we utilize it. If we don't utilize it correctly, then there is a problem. But I think that we will put a legacy plan in place. And this has got nothing to do with any government. It's got nothing to do with politics. 1.5 billion people, and you're saying you're talking
Hmm.
about infrastructure? Come on.
So, are you saying that we are great with our infrastructure and that we are all ready and we will be ready to host an Olympics and infrastructure is not a concern at all? Particularly the sports infrastructure,
Absolutely,
apart from other infrastructure that would be required, Mr.
absolutely.
Adil?
We will be ready at least 3 years before. If we start now, we will be ready at least 3 years before the games. Let me tell you that. 12 years is enough and more time. It's
Right.
just too much time. We don't need that much time.
Right.
We are
Mr.
not.
Adil
We are not
Sumariwala,
some
thank you
third
very
world
much for
country.
joining us. Thank
We
you.
are not a third world country anymore. We are. We are the big. We're in the top 5, top 10 in the world. We're not a developing, country which is struggling. We are there right on top. And I don't know what is all this negative thought process that is going behind it. We need positive thought process from the media, from the athletes, from people. And let me tell you, when I was part of the team that went and bid for the Commonwealth Games, and at the final bid, which was in Jamaica, there was a video from the then Prime Minister of India, Mr. Vajpayee, saying we would love to host the games and we are all ready to host the game. And there was a video from the leader of the opposition, which was Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, saying we support this completely and fully. And we in India are one. And one of the people who really pushed our proposal was the president of
Right.
Pakistan Olympic Association, and said that when they raised issues about war and things like that, he said there was going to be no war.
Right.
We support India's proposal, and that is so. We all need to get on the same page and work together.
Right, Mr. Adil, that's very interesting. And thank you. You make a very important point that it's important to have the right perspective. And I guess one of the ways to ensure that one does get to that right perspective is to ask the questions that need to be asked and to get the answers from all the stakeholders, including position holders, as well as sports person. And I think that's exactly what the media is as well doing at this point. So thank you very much, Mr. Adil Sumariwala, for joining us. It is, of course, a very big moment as India officially starts the process to bid for the Olympics.